close your eyes and step back in time. You are Margot, 15, fragile, barely a shadow of a woman, yet already someone's property. You stand at the threshold of a stone cottage, barefoot on icy rushes, wearing a hand-me-down shift that reeks of lost girlhood and cheap prayers. Through the paper-thin walls, you hear men, your husband's friends, laughing, shouting, pounding on pots. They're drunk, wild, hungry to witness your pain. They won't leave until they hear proof. You know what proof means. Inside, candlelight crawls across the scarred face of Henrik, the man twice your age, chosen by your father not for kindness or love, but for the promise of 3 pigs and a handful of barley. He doesn't speak, just unties the leather cord at your throat, and you suddenly remember every whispered warning your mother ever gave you about wifely duties. Your heart races, your body trembles. You want to vanish, to melt into the cold stones, to become nothing at all. But this is your world now, a room thick with the stench of wet wool, stale sweat, and a terror that you can taste. Tonight, your innocence is a commodity. Your blood, your body, your pain, they are all public property. You don't own yourself. The village is waiting, the law is watching, the church is counting every gasp, every tear, every drop of blood that stains the bed. There is no privacy here, no mercy. This is not a love story. It's a transaction. The marriage bed is not a place for dreams, but a battleground of flesh and fate. Here, your body is a bargaining chip, your soul a silent casualty. And through it all, a single brutal question rings in your mind. Is this all I was born for? Welcome to the Middle Ages, where superstition weighs more than truth, where women are currency, and love is a fairy tale told only to fools and children. Step closer, if you dare, to a night where intimacy is never private, and survival is the only thing real. The door closes behind you with a sound like the end of childhood. Henrik's hands are rough, his eyes unreadable, trained by a life of war and want. He does not see you, not really. To him, you are duty fulfilled, contract sealed, a name on a slip of parchment traded for a dowry of livestock and grain. The shadows in the room stretch long, swallowing the corners, turning the bed into an altar for a ritual you never asked to join. You think of your mother's face, tight with worry as she braided your hair that morning. Her words come back to you in broken whispers. Obey, and you might survive. Resist, and you'll be blamed for what happens. The air is heavy with candle smoke and something deeper, a silence charged with centuries of superstition and shame. You remember the priest's warnings at confession. Sin has a price. Even in marriage, pleasure is dangerous. You remember the village women sharing secret glances, speaking in riddles about blood on sheets, about prayers whispered when no one is listening. Outside, the laughter grows. Footsteps stamp, voices chant, the whole community waiting for a cry, a gasp, the proof that you have become a wife. If there is no blood, if you do not scream, you know what comes next. Disgrace, suspicion, exile, or worse. You are not alone, yet you have never felt more isolated. Your body is a theater, your pain the show, and every breath is an offering to the god of custom and control. There is nowhere to run. There is nowhere to hide. In this world, a woman's worth is measured by what she can endure, how quietly she can bleed, how well she can pretend. Every whisper of rebellion is crushed beneath the weight of tradition. Every hope is smothered by fear of eternal damnation, of family shame, of a future written in someone else's hand. Tonight is not about you. Tonight is about survival, about learning to shrink, to disappear inside yourself while your body is claimed and conquered. And so, Margot, you close your eyes. You let the darkness in. You count your breaths the way your mother taught you as a child, 1 for hope, 2 for sorrow, 3 for all the futures you will never have. Somewhere far away, a candle guttered out, and with it, the last fragile echo of a girl's dream. Welcome to the bedchamber. Welcome to the nightmare. This is medieval love, if you can still call it that. The ritual begins not with tenderness, but with spectacle. They drag you, Margot, into the center of the room, hands cold on your shoulders, voices slurring old songs of lust and luck. Women pull at your dress, fingers rough, half pitying, half proud, as they strip you bare beneath the candlelight. Laughter bursts like broken glass. A few coins are tossed for luck, as if your humiliation could bring someone fortune. Henrik, silent as ever, stands waiting, his duty clear, his desire irrelevant. The men jeer and pound their mugs on the table, egging him on, demanding proof that the night will be finished by the book. The old women, keepers of tradition, murmur about omens and signs, checking the bed for clean linens and hanging charms against evil spirits. Someone sprinkles holy water. Someone else hides a dried root beneath the mattress, a secret prayer for fertility or escape. No one will ever know which. The door slams shut. The lock clicks. The world outside waits, ear pressed to ancient wood, hungry for the first sharp cry, the wet stain of honor on the sheet. You kneel on straw, knees already burning, staring at the faded pattern on the coverlet, hands gripping fabric like a lifeline. This is your inheritance, to bleed for your father's bargain, to suffer for your mother's silence, to offer up your body so your family can survive another winter. Your mind drifts, searching for somewhere, anywhere, softer than this moment. You remember a field in summer, a game you played as a child, the freedom in your legs before they were bound by duty. You want to scream, but the sound is lost, trapped behind your teeth. Henrik moves, the bed creaks, and time stops. There is pain, there is shame, there is nothing left of the girl who entered this room. But the world outside is satisfied. A cheer rises, hollow and victorious. The blood on the sheet is paraded like a battle flag, proof that the ritual is complete, that the bargain is sealed, that Margot is no longer a girl, but something less and something more, a wife, a vessel, a story to be retold in whispers for generations. And as you lie there, staring up at shadows dancing on the cracked ceiling, you understand. Here, love is just another word for survival. And survival costs everything. Morning comes, cold and gray, seeping through cracks in the stone walls. Margot lies awake, eyes fixed on the stained ceiling, feeling the ache settle deep in her bones. Henrik's heavy breath rumbles somewhere beside her, content, oblivious, already dreaming of barley and livestock, of debts paid and promises kept. She is awake, but she is not here. What's left of her is drifting somewhere above, floating just beneath the damp rafters, where childhood memories flicker like dying candlelight. The sheet beneath her thighs is stiff, proof of a transaction fulfilled. Someone will come soon, maybe an aunt, maybe a neighbor, to check, to gossip, to carry the story out into the market square. The whole village will know by noon, Margot is a wife. The line of honor is safe for another generation. She wonders if her mother felt the same emptiness, the same cold crawl up her spine, the same sense of falling into someone else's life and never climbing back out. She remembers her mother's hands, rough, gentle, trembling as they smoothed her hair before the ceremony, whispering half-true comforts. Endure, survive. One day you'll understand. The truth is, Margot does not understand. She only knows the world expects her to rise, to work, to serve, to bear children, and never speak of her pain. This is how silence becomes tradition, how wounds become heritage, how suffering is folded quietly into every meal, every lullaby, every story told by firelight. Outside, church bells call for morning prayer, a hollow promise of salvation in a world built on suffering. The priest's words echo in her mind. Pleasure is a sin. Obedience is a virtue. Margot wraps the blanket around herself, hiding the marks, the shame, the newness of her broken innocence. She stares at her hands, still small, still shaken. She wonders how many more nights she will have to surrender, how many more mornings she will wake up a little less than she was. In the yard, voices rise, old women laughing, men arguing about pigs and crops, the world moving on as if nothing has changed. But everything has changed. And Margot, caught between the weight of survival and the ghost of who she once was, understands this one thing. In this world, pain is inherited, silence is rewarded, and the price of being a woman is paid in blood and memory. The candle on the windowsill burns low, fighting the daylight, fragile, stubborn, refusing to die. Just like her, days bleed into nights, each one stitched to the next by the same relentless rituals, as if time itself refuses to pass, only circling, pressing Margot deeper into the bones of her new life. Each dawn is like the last, cold, colorless, woven with the same unbreakable threads of duty and silence. Margot moves through her days like a shadow among ghosts, fetching icy buckets of water at dawn, hands red and raw, mending endless rents in old clothes by firelight, grinding coarse grain between aching palms while her eyes remain always lowered, her voice softened to a whisper lest it draw unwanted notice. Her movements are careful, deliberate, almost invisible, as if shrinking her presence could shrink her suffering. Every task feels like a trial. Every mistake, spilled flour, torn hem, a poorly stoked fire, brings not only scolding, but the risk of something worse. All the while, the memory of her wedding night clings to her skin like smoke, inescapable, bitter, rising to choke her when she least expects it. It seeps into her pores, haunts her dreams, curls around every silence, a ghost of pain too large to name, but too familiar to escape. In church, Margot sits on a hard wooden pew, fingers tangled in her lap. The priest's voice rings out, ironclad and merciless, a hammer striking an anvil. He preaches about obedience and duty, about a woman's place beneath man and God. His gaze sweeps over the women like a curse, word sharp as frost-bitten iron. A woman's pleasure is temptation. Her pain is her cross to bear. The congregation nods, fearful and cowed, and Margot feels the weight of centuries bowing her head. Elsewhere, old women huddle in smoky corners, kneading dough or weaving rough bread with stories half whispered, half sung, soft warnings braided into every crust and prayer. Don't speak too loud. Don't walk too fast. Don't let your eyes linger where they shouldn't. If your husband's hand is heavy, thank God you have a husband at all. The lessons are everywhere, passed mouth to ear, folded into the rhythm of daily survival. At home, Henrik's needs dictate the tempo of every hour. The church forbids certain nights, Wednesdays, Fridays, feast days, but appetite and ale don't heed holy law. Margot soon learns to count her sins as she counts her breaths, quietly, desperately, praying that submission might protect her soul, even as her body is claimed, used, discarded, again and again. Some nights, Margot stands at the window, breath fogging the glass, eyes drawn upward to a moon that hangs cold and distant above the snow-drowned village. She wonders if, somewhere far beyond this world, there are girls allowed to be children, allowed to grow slow and safe, if there are beds built for laughter and love, not for fear and proof and pain. But here, superstition is not just a law. It is the air itself, invisible but suffocating. Menstrual blood is poison, capable, they say, of blighting crops, sickening cattle, even souring wine. Desire is a sin, a mark of shame, even the smallest sign of womanhood. Blood, breast, the curve of a hip can bring danger. Margot hides her rags in the darkest corners, slips out late to wash them in the river, asks questions in whispers to older women, desperate for answers that always end in shrugs, warnings, silence. This is not living. This is survival. 1,000 tiny rebellions each day, biting her tongue until it bleeds, swallowing her tears in the shadows, clutching a shard of amber or a twisted root beneath her shift like a talisman, praying in a language the priest will never understand. Sometimes, a fleeting echo of laughter surfaces in her chest, thin, brittle, quickly chased away by the day's demands. Sometimes the memory of joy slips away entirely, and she fears she will never find it again. Outside, the world rolls on, oblivious to her silent battle. Children chase each other through mud and straw. Men haggle over barley and pigs. The fields await the mercy of rain or sun. Only Margot knows the truth, that her body is a war zone, every bruise and ache a map of invisible wounds, that her soul is a locked room, its windows shuttered tight against intrusion, that her hope is a single flicker hidden deep, stubbornly alive beneath the weight of everything she's lost. And so she endures. Because endurance here is an act of rebellion. It is the only way to survive long enough to remember who she was. Before the night, the door closed behind her, and the world called it love. But endurance is not enough. One night, when the ache becomes a tide she can no longer hold back, and the silence presses in until she cannot breathe, Margot changes. She sits at the window, moonlight painting silver on her bruises, the world outside asleep, wrapped in ignorant peace. Henrik's snores rattle through the room, the wind scratches at the shutters, and Margot feels the weight of centuries pressing down on her chest. And something shifts. Tonight, she does not cry. She does not pray. She does not shrink or fold herself into the corners of her own body. Instead, with careful fingers, Margot lifts a floorboard, pulls out a small battered box, a secret, passed from woman to woman, mother to daughter, a legacy of whispered survival. Inside, a shard of amber warm as old sunlight, a lock of hair soft as lost childhood, a scrap of faded cloth, a root gnarled into the shape of a tiny twisted person. She presses the root to her skin, feels the thrum of life deep within the wood. She remembers stories told in secret of girls who fled into the forest, women who brewed teas that tasted of freedom, of pain turned into power by hands that refused to break. She remembers the names of those who dared to want, to choose, to say no. A spark ignites in Margot's chest. Not hope, not yet, but something wilder, sharper, hungry and golden as the sun she barely remembers. She rises, careful not to wake Henrik, slips outside into dew-wet grass, feet numb, hair unbound. The night air tastes different, new, wild, clean. Each step is a rebellion, each breath an act of war against silence and fear. At the river, in the dark where no one dares follow, Margot stands knee-deep in the icy current, letting it wash the sweat and sorrow from her skin. For the first time since that door slammed shut, she lets herself feel not fear, not duty, not pain, but her own heartbeat, wild and strong. The moon lights her face. The water whispers, "You are still here." Margot makes a vow, silent but unbreakable. I will not disappear. I will not let them turn my body into a grave for my soul. She cups water in her hands, drinks deeply, and the cold wakes something sleeping inside her. She is not a ghost, not a sacrifice, not a story for men to boast and barter. She is fire. She is river. She is her own. When Margot returns, something ancient and unbreakable burns in her eyes. No one else may notice, but she knows. And in a world that worships silence, Margot's quiet rebellion is the loudest scream of all. As the seasons wheel past, Margot's fire does not fade. It spreads, subtle as dusk, relentless as roots splitting stone. She finds the others, one by one, at the well, by the hearth, in the rows of beans and barley, girls with hollow eyes and bitten lips, mothers with hands twisted by work, widows haunted by old sorrows. She lets them see her wounds. She sees theirs. It is the beginning. At first, it's just a glance, a nod, a careful brush of fingers, but understanding grows, a hidden language of shared pain, small kindnesses, secret strength. Margot passes along what she has gathered, a dried sprig of herb slipped into an apron, a story told while darning socks, a warning about the priest's shadow, or a husband's fist. She teaches them to hide pain, when to reveal it, how to bury rags deep and brew secret teas, how to listen to the river at night, to remember that they are alive. At night, the women gather in ones and twos, then more, hungry for truth, starved for connection. In the dark, they dare to speak forbidden words, freedom, choice, self. Stories multiply, wild and tenacious, like flowers pushing through stone. Stories of endurance, tricks to fool the midwife, prayers whispered backwards to protect a child, courage carried in a hidden bead, a broken comb, a smile. Margot becomes a shadow teacher, a keeper of outlawed wisdom. Girls look at her not with pity, but with respect. Old women nod, their own rebellions reborn in her hands. The fire leaps quietly from one woman to the next, across seasons, across generations, beneath the notice of priests and husbands, growing where no one dares look. And though the world remains harsh, something vital has changed. There is a light that cannot be caged or drowned. Whenever Margot sees a young girl, barefoot, frightened, on the verge of womanhood. She squeezes her hand, leans close, and whispers, "You are not alone. You are never alone." With that, the darkness trembles. The world is still hard, still cold, but now it burns with a secret flame, one woman at a time. Winter wraps the village in its iron fist, and every roof groans beneath the weight of snow. Margot's world shrinks, stone walls, gray sky, endless work. Even laughter seems rare, brittle, quick to die in the cold. But beneath the frozen soil, something moves, something that no one, not even Margot, can fully name. The old rituals go on as if nothing has changed. Men gather in the tavern, boasting over muddy ale. Women huddle at the fires, trading news, sharing pain in code. The priest's sermons echo in the chapel, sharper than the wind, promising damnation, preaching patience, insisting this is how things have always been and always will be. But every now and then, there is a break in the pattern. A look, a word, a touch, out of place. Margot sees it in the faces of the women she passes, a new steadiness in their step, a spark behind their guarded smiles. She shares tea with an old widow who once buried a secret in the woods. She lends a comb to a girl whose dreams are too big for her father's house. She sits beside her mother and for the first time does not lower her eyes. At night, she lies awake, feeling the pulse of the seed inside her, growing, reaching, refusing to sleep through the cold. She thinks of all the women who came before her, whose names have been forgotten, whose courage was never spoken, whose quiet acts of defiance now live in the marrow of her bones. Sometimes, in her dreams, Margot returns to the river, the moon painting silver on the surface. She stands there, hair unbound, breath clouding the air, and hears the water sing of futures not yet written. She promises herself, "I will remember this song. I will teach it quietly to anyone who listens." And so, day by day, Margot sows the seed. She tells stories at the spinning wheel, teaching the girls how to listen for meaning beneath the words. She shows them how to hide what must be hidden, how to care for wounds that should never have been made, how to whisper no in a world that only knows yes. Her small acts of rebellion multiply, one hand pressed into another, a glance, a warning, a comfort, a piece of bread broken in secret, a string of amber beads passed down when no one is watching. Through her, the women begin to hope, just a little. They begin to question the shape of their cages, to test the locks, to imagine a door left open. The men remain blind, the priests louder, the world unchanged on the surface. But below, under the heavy silent snow, the hat ma'am of resistance puts down roots, deep, wide, and patient. Margot understands now. Change does not come like thunder. It comes like thaw, slow and unstoppable, working in the darkness. She is no longer the frightened girl of that first night. She is winter's promise that under the frost, life refuses to die. One day, when the snow melts and the river runs wild, someone will see the green shoot pushing through the cracks. They will not know Margot's name, nor the battles she fought in silence, but they will feel the world is different, lighter, freer, softer around the edges. The hat ma'am lives, the story lives, the chain is broken, link by silent link, carried forward in the hands and hearts of those who dare to hope. And somewhere, deep inside, Margot smiles, knowing her rebellion is not the end, but only the beginning.